Say that. Go ahead, Pat.
Hello and welcome everyone to case 3.4 presentation, McDonald's Ford dealership with Group 2. My name is Pat Driscoll.
I'm Vince speaking.
Andrew Ross.
So case summary. This case consists of two scenarios at the McDonald's Ford car dealership. Both scenarios show our salesperson, John Alexander, interact with customer June Miller as she looks for a new car. In both scenarios, we see John approach June with varying degrees of success. In scenario one, we see John start pretty well. He diffuses June's comments about rolling back the mileage on the car, and later on with some of the price comments she makes. It's always important to ensure that a customer doesn't start off on the wrong foot. And he starts to ask good discovery questions. How much do you drive? How far are you typically going? What are you looking for? But unfortunately, he makes a large mistake by not understanding June's draw to the Ford. And, initially he thinks that, hey, she likes this Ford, but it's too big. It's not inexpensive what she's looking for, and immediately drives her to other options. This leaves June to leave the lot without much consideration. Scenario two, it starts much the same. John diffuses her statement about the mileage and starts asking good discovery questions. But a key initiative that he makes is once he finds out about the Ford, he asks what attracts her to the Ford, and learns that, it's not the size, it's not the cost, but she likes the sleek and stylish nature of the Ford, and she likes Ford cars in general. So this allows him to ask more pointed questions, even goes further on her driving with her boss and the carpool and better understand that nature. And then when he takes her to the same five cars that he showed her originally, he's able to ask questions about each and dial in, if they're closer or further away from what she is looking for. June still leaves the lot without purchasing a car, but there's a lot larger chance to return because of that rapport that John made with her. So for the case questions, we see in scenario one and scenario two, they're very similar. I have them all on screen here. And then at the end of scenario two, we have an additional question that ties in, kind of both scenarios and key takeaways.
So scenario one, the questions describe the situation and the buyer's apparent needs in this. Obviously, the customer June comes to the lot clearly looking for a car, something that's reliable, affordable, with good mileage. But we don't know too much else about that until we move into the next scenario. The next question is what has the salesperson done well in this scenario? Really diverted or diffused the situation regards June's comments about mileage on the car, and then kind of open up the dialogue to ask discovery questions to dig into more of what the wants, needs, and desires are of June. How could the salesperson learn more about the buyer's needs? Continue to ask open-ended questions. Keep ask as many questions until that salesperson feels that they've acquired enough information to move the sales process along. Also to work and understand the thoughts of the customer instead of just trying to guess what they think or move them into what they want to sell the customer. What should the seller do now that the buyer has said no to the cars that he has shown her and is about to leave the car lot? Again, staying diligent with the questions, trying to establish some type of form of contact so that they could follow up later on, or see if there's something specifically that they could jot down and go look for somewhere else just to tie them back into the lot. And ultimately throw a Hail Mary, anything to keep the customer on the lot and keep that dialogue open. It's what they're going to want to do in that situation to potentially entice this buyer.
Thanks, Vince. So as we look into scenario two, some similar questions with a little bit of changes, right? But describing the situation and the buyer's apparent needs, we understand the customer is looking for a reliable, affordable car that gets good gas mileage. From the questions that were asked, right, we now know that they like Fords, right? The sleek and stylish cars are something that was appealing to June. What has the salesperson done well in this scenario? We believe that, the ability to diffuse June's comments about the mileage, ask further discovery questions, and then key really in on what is that want and desire related back to the Ford, right? That stylish design. As for how could the salesperson learn more about the buyer's needs, continue that effort of the open-ended questions that are being asked, establish a timeline, the sense of urgency to really understand what the next steps might look like for that customer. And then lastly, what should the seller do now that the buyer has said no to the cars he has shown her and is about to leave the car lot? I think as we're discussing the case, just understanding, trying to establish that contact for follow-up, right? But the questions in the direction that was taken throughout this scenario, different from the first scenario. I think we believe a much better chance to try that soft close, right? As he walked through each of those 5 cars, understanding those wants and needs, what she likes. I think a soft close with the car that is closest to those needs is absolutely applicable here for this scenario. As we continue for answers on scenario number 2 and our conclusions, now that you have reviewed both scenarios, what 3 keys would you suggest a salesperson remember when trying to learn about a buyer's needs? Number 1, always ask open-ended questions. You need an answer that is not yes or no, right? Open up the dialogue a little bit, continue to build that trust. For the second, always learn the drivers of why a customer wants something, not what you think is best, right? I think what we saw in scenario 1, the seller had an idea of what the customer a certain box rather than they were taking. And then lastly, if a customer cannot choose now, establish a way to follow up and establish a time frame, right? So as the customer was asking for a contact card to own that follow-up on her end, we want to be proactive in identifying how we can continue that contact and then establish what an appropriate time frame might look like. Lastly, on our conclusions, it can be tough to not want to solve a customer's need right away and know what they need, but we need to take the time to understand the customer and their whys.
Awesome. Yeah. And just to hammer home, when I was a sales manager, as always, my team thought they had the answer right away and wanted to jump in on a call, but we need to sometimes slow down, know that, yeah, we may have the best thing on paper, but what's driving the customer? In this case, he dismissed the Ford right away because it was too big, too expensive, but there was a draw there that obviously he learned about in scenario 2 that was allowed him to be more successful. So always ask those questions. And thank you for coming to our presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.